The Gatton murders, also known as the Gatton tragedy, the Gatton mystery and the Murphy murders, is the name given to an unsolved triple homicide that occurred 1.5 miles (2.4 km) from the town of Gatton, Queensland, Australia. Michael Murphy, aged 29, and his younger sisters, Nora, 27, and Teresa Ellen, 18, were killed between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. on 27 December, 1898, while returning home from a proposed dance that had been cancelled. Michael had been shot and bludgeoned, Nora strangled and bludgeoned, and Teresa Ellen bludgeoned twice. The Murphy family owned a farm at Blackfellows Creek, some 8 miles 13 kilometers from Gatton and 61 miles 98 kilometers west of Queensland's capital, Brisbane. The 1909 census listed the population as 449 people. In the late 19th century, the town was a major stopover point on the road from Brisbane to the Darling Downs, and with 2 major bridges and a railway line, the town was a rapidly expanding service centre for the district. Michael and Daniel Murphy had both left home, Michael working on a government experimental farm near Westbrook, while Daniel was a Brisbane police constable. Michael had returned home for the Christmas holidays and on 26 December Boxing Day, 1898, had taken his sister Teresa Ellen to the Mount Sylvia races in nearby Caffey. At 8 p.m., Michael and his sisters Nora and Teresa Ellen left home to attend a dance due to be held at the Gatton Hall. Arriving at 9 p.m., they found that the dance had been cancelled and began the return journey home, but failed to arrive. Early the following morning, Mrs. Murphy asked her son-in-law, William Emanuel, to go to Gatton to find out why they had not returned. Michael had borrowed Emanuel's sulky for the outing, and while on the Tent Hill Road to Gatton, Emanuel recognized his sulky's distinctive tracks, the result of a wobbling wheel turning off the road through a slip rail. Emanuel followed the tracks along a rough winding trail through Wattle Scrub for around 0.75 miles (1.21 km) before finding his missing relatives. Emanuel found the victims in a field 1.2 miles (1.9 km) from Gatton. Michael and Teresa Ellen were lying back to back, within 2 feet (0.61 meters) of each other. Nora lay in the same east-west orientation, on a neatly spread rug, 28 feet (8.5 meters) to the east. Both women had their hands tied behind their backs with handkerchiefs. Forming a triangle, the sulky faced south, 17.5 feet (5.3 meters) from Michael and 36 feet (11 meters) from Nora. The horse had been shot in the head and still lay between the shafts. Their legs were arranged with the feet pointing west. This signature behavior has never been repeated in Australian crime and, like the Gatton murders themselves, remains a mystery inexplicably. Emanuel then contacted Acting Sergeant William Ayel, who was in charge of the Gatton police station, who later arranged for police from Brisbane to attend. This led to further delays, with the investigating officers not arriving until 48 hours after the discovery of the bodies. The bodies were moved to the Gilbert's Hotel, and at 4 p.m. Dr. von Lossberg, the government medical officer at Ipswich, arrived, and between 4 to 5 p.m., began an autopsy. Michael had been shot and struck with a blunt instrument on the right side of the head. Teresa Ellen had her skull fractured by 2 blows to the left side of her head. The wounds and position of the bodies when found indicated that Michael and Teresa Ellen were sitting upright, and back to back when struck. Nora had also been struck on the left side of her head, pulverizing her skull to the extent that her brain was protruding. In addition, Nora had a harness strap tied around her neck, tight enough to have caused death. It is alleged that both women had been outraged raped. In the absence of semen, based on the evidence of Sergeant Ayel that he found a pool of blood, which turned the soil to mud and stuck to the underside of the rug on which Nora's body was found, it appears that both women had been raped with the brass-mounted handle of a whip. An extensive police search for the whip met with negative results. Emanuel later testified that, although Michael's hands were not tied, when he first saw the body, it appeared that his hands had been tied behind his back at some point, with one holding an open purse. However, all other witnesses stated that Michael's hands were not tied, but that a breeching strap lay nearby, and that an empty purse was lying a short distance from the body. When his body was removed from the site at about 1:30 p.m., Michael was now found to have the breeching strap between his untied hands, with the empty purse held in one. Known to have had 15 shillings (2010, $100) in the purse the night before, it was speculated that someone may have untied Michael to access the purse. Either Gilbert, one of the party, or Emanuel took the purse. This has never been explained. The original post-mortems were conducted by the government medical officer Dr. von Lossberg, with Sergeant Al supervising. From interviews with people who had seen the bodies, Chief Inspector Stewart determined that Michael may have been shot in the head, but this was not found by Dr. von Lossberg, despite claims that he had been asked to look for a bullet. Stewart ordered that all 3 bodies be exhumed, and it was found that the original post-mortems were no more than superficial examinations. Although decomposition was advanced, it was now found that Michael had indeed been shot in the right side of his head, then subsequently struck on the same spot with a blunt instrument, so that the later wound partially obscured the bullet hole. The bullet was recovered from the skull. Mr. Wiggins, J.P. testified that he had ordered the burials without an order for burial, because he believed the post-mortems had been completed, and assumed that von Lossberg had not carried any orders with him. Wiggins assumed an order would be forwarded from Ipswich. Sub-Inspector Galbraith testified that von Lossberg had told him that he had completed the post-mortems and that he had asked if von Lossberg had found a bullet. Galbraith stated that von Lossberg had told him that he had found what looked like a bullet hole with no exit wound, but could not find a bullet in the skull. Dr. von Lossberg testified that he had told Galbraith that he had not performed a post-mortem at all because he was suffering from blood poisoning, and for him not to have the bodies buried. Clerk George Baines testified that he was present at this conversation and that von Lossberg had not mentioned not completing the post-mortems, his blood poisoning, or the request for Galbraith not to bury the bodies. Von Lossberg replied that he had never seen Baines before in his life and that even if he had been present, what passed was said in a whisper. Emanuel contacted Sergeant Al at 9:15 am on 27 December. Both men rode to the crime scene where they remained for 30 minutes before Al returned to Gatton to send a telegram to the Brisbane Commissioner of Police. Al took no notes while at the site, did not interview anyone present, and made no effort to protect the site from the large number of people who had congregated. In Gatton, Al requested that the telegram be marked urgent, only to be told that the police had no authority to send urgent telegrams. This was incorrect, and Al was later criticized by a Royal Commission for not knowing he had that authority and also for waiting for the reply instead of returning immediately to the site with arrangements for the reply to be sent to him. The telegram was delivered to the Brisbane Police Headquarters at 12:52 p.m. However, because it was a holiday, it was not opened until 9 a.m. the next day, 28 December. The Royal Commission found this sequence of events incomprehensible, indicative of the existence of a rotten system of policing, and a culpable indifference on the part of the Inspector Urquhart to his duty to the public. Some evidence given before the Royal Commission pointed towards an itinerant labourer, Thomas Day, who had not been considered a suspect by the police investigation. Day lived in a hut around 900 feet 270 meters from the murder site. One local woman claimed she saw a man on foot chase the Murphy's sulky as it passed on its way to the dance. This man had been standing opposite slip rails blocking the little-known access road that led to the murder location, but she was unable to identify him. Day had been seen by a number of people on earlier nights, walking along the road. Another witness claimed that he had seen Day washing blood from a pullover a few days later. Moreover, Constable Robert George Christie gave evidence at the Royal Commission that he suspected it was Thomas Day who was handed the revolver used in the Oxley murder by Edward Lytton Caius Wilson, and that it was the same revolver used in the Gatton murders. In 1906, a revolver with 4 spent chambers was found in the swamp paddock on the Gatton side of Clark's butchery where Thomas Day was employed. 4 shots were fired in the Oxley and Gatton murders. The actual name of the prime suspect for the Gatton murders was Theo Farmer, who used the aliases of Thomas Day and Thomas Ferner. It was rumored after the Oxley and Gatton murders that he, and Edward Lytton Caius Wilson, the prime suspect for the Oxley murder, were related to some might magnate. There was no mightier magnate than William Farmer, who left Australia for England in 1874, which was the year Theo Farmer was born. Several modern writers, including Australian author and crime researcher Stephanie Bennett, have suggested possible culprits. On 1 August 1918, Premier William Arthur Hallman of the NSW government confirmed the death of Theo Farmer alias Thomas Day and Thomas Ferner. In 1900 he wrote a letter to Hugh Robert Denison about publishing an illustration in the Sun newspaper. Theo Farmer alias Thomas Day was the prime suspect for the Gatton murders. 2 weeks after the murders, Day asked the police if he was wanted for further investigation and was told that he was not. The records show that he later enlisted in the military but deserted in May 1899. The following year, a Thomas Ferner was admitted to the Sydney Hospital in New South Wales suffering from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. After his death on 25 October 1900, he was identified by Inspector Urquhart as Thomas Day. He died known as Thomas Ferner in the Sydney Hospital on 25 October 1900, with the knowledge of which the police and governments in Queensland and New South Wales withheld from the public.